stories are true, but I really didn't know what story I was going to tell you. I wanted to look at the audience before I decided, and I'm seeing the audience. And the stories that I got are true were actually pretty scary, and I've shared them with a lot of my students, and I warn them. I say, look, you want me to tell this story? He says, you just got to understand that it may not bother you today because you're surrounded by good friends. It's light, it's warm outside, it's warm inside, there's a lot of security. He says, you're not going to be scared. Tonight, you're going to go to bed. You're going to be by yourself. Life's going to go out. Every little thing in that room is going to keep you awake because you're going to remember that story. So I'm not going to tell my really, really scary stories. Instead, after studying my audience, I'm going to tell a story that will make you feel good inside. Now, these stories are true. Now, you don't have to believe them. That won't bother me. I hope you enjoy them as much as I enjoy telling them. And the reason that I'm wearing my uniform is because a lot of these incidents that happened to me when I was in the military. Okay, and this is one particular incident that happened to me when I was stationed in Hawaii. So, wake up at 5 in the morning, put my PT clothes on, go out and run with the men, and come back in and eat breakfast, take a shower, go back out, in my uniform and start the day. Well, this was one day I came back in and my wife Kathleen was in the kitchen and she was crying. And I said, "What's the matter, honey?" And she said, "Well, it's my Aunt Mary Lou. And my Aunt Mary Lou is on her deathbed, and they say that if I don't come and see her right now, probably I won't ever be able to see her alive again." Now, Aunt Mary Lou was my mama's, I call her mama because she's to the kids. This is Kathleen's favorite aunt. She really thought highly of her. And I said, "Well, she's not part of the inner circle of the family. I don't know if I can get emergency leave, but I'll ask if I can go." So didn't even change my clothes, ran up to the battalion headquarters, talked to my battalion commander. He said, "Joe, I'll let you go." He says, "I won't let you go under emergency leave, but I'll let you go under emergency conditions." He says, "Just sign out and we'll see you when you get back. Take as long as you need." So I come back and I told Kathleen, I said, "He's going to let us go." And she was happy about that. And she was working for the state of Hawaii then. She had to go and leave and, make the conditions necessary so we could leave that night. And we were actually able to get the red eye straight to Atlanta, Georgia. Well, she left, and I'm still in my sweaty PT clothes, physical training, and I go into the kitchen, and she had some leftover fried rice, and I opened up the dishwasher. It was full of dirty dishes, so I went in there and grabbed me another plate and fork and scooped the rest of that fried rice on there, and I sat down. Now, we would always be on alert every month. Our battalion would be the one on alert, so I got in the habit of turning the TV on to headline news. And headline news back then used to recycle every 30 minutes. So 30 minutes you'd hear that the music where they would start, and you knew they was going to start their stories again. Well, I had the television in my bag, and I had the newspaper out, and I'm sitting there, and I'm eating rice. And when you're sitting by yourself, and someone walks by you, they can be as quiet as a cat. But you can tell someone walked by you, even though you didn't see them, because maybe you can smell their perfume, maybe you can feel the air rustle. And this was 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'll tell you why I knew it was 10 o'clock in just a second. I'm sitting there and I'm eating, I'm listening to the television, and it just started going over again. Okay, so I knew it was just starting, and someone walked behind me. And now the back door is this way, the front door is this way, kitchen's over that way, and whatever came by me came from the back door, was heading towards the kitchen. Didn't really think much about it, but I heard the dishwasher opening up, and I heard dishes moving around. I saw Kathleen come in, and she's getting ready to wash those dishes. And it didn't occur to me why she would be coming in at this time, so I shoveled all the rest of the food in my mouth and went back in there, because I didn't want her to start the dishes without that plate. So I walk in there, and the dishwasher's open. There's a dish rag on top of the dishwasher, and there's a pile of forks, a pile of knives, a pile of spoons. And I looked at that, and we looked out in the front yard, and no cars out there, looked out in the back, walked around the inside of their house there, and nobody's there. I said, "Man, that's strange." And didn't think about it. Kathleen came home 11 o'clock, didn't even mention it to her. It was dark 30, we got into Atlanta, and her Aunt Mary lived in LJ. And of course, we walked up there, and we drove up there, and her Aunt Mary Lou had died, no big deal. And we're at the funeral, and I'm sitting there, and we're waiting for things to happen, and I talked to her brother, Theron, and I tell Theron that story. He said, that's, odd. I said, well, what's the big deal? He says, well, what time did Aunt Mary Lou die? And he said, well, right around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I said, well, don't you see the connection? And he says, no. And I said, well, 4 o'clock Georgia time in the afternoon is 10 o'clock Hawaii time. And he said, well, it's nothing but a coincidence. He says, don't worry about it, just a coincidence. All right, so I didn't say anything about it. So about the night before we were going to leave, we were in my mother-in-law's, they lived in a trailer above the lawn and garden store that they worked at. And we were in their trailer, and we were sitting there. It's after we had eaten, and Kathleen was behind the kitchen, and she's sitting there, and she's putting the dishes away, and she just broke down and started crying. And I said, why are you crying? I knew why she was crying. She said, why are you crying? And she said, well, I was just thinking about my Mary Lou, my Aunt Mary Lou. She says, I remember the first time she got a dishwasher. And I said, oh, well. And she says, well, she couldn't operate it because she'd gone all her life, washing dishes by hand. And she could never get those dishes clean. And so I went over there and I helped her out. And I said, you can't overload it. You got to stack them in just right. And it never hurts to pre-wash the dishes before you put them in the dishwasher. Just good sense. And Mary Lou always used to compliment me on this one trick that I taught her when I gave her that class. And she said every time she saw me, she would mention that trick. And I said, what trick was that? She said, before you load the dishwasher, take your knives, put them in one pile above the dishwasher. Take your forks, put them in one pile. Take your spoons, put them in one pile. Then when you put them in the dishwasher, when you grab them out, you don't have to separate them. You can put them right into the dividers. And when she said that, I looked at Theron, and Theron looked at me. She goes, what? Of course, I told her that story, and she started crying again. But we've got a lot of stories like that in our family. And even though I don't believe in ghosts, I believe in energies. And for whatever you might think, whatever you might believe in, I believe, personally, and Aunt Mary Lou came by looking for Kathleen on her way to wherever she went. I personally believe that. Anyway, that's my story. Thank you so much for listening.